A Canada Non-Profit Guide. Chapter 1. Canadian Non-Profits Guide 1. Major Canadian non-profit/NGO resources. The term NGO means non-government organization and refers to non-profit organizations acting in the public interest. Agoracosmopolitan.com, Canada's socially progressive, cross-cultural, and environmental protection-oriented national newspaper. Volunteer.ca. Charityvillage.ca. bbb.org/bureaus/Canadian/ASP. bccic.bc.ca/bccicweb, BC Council for International Cooperation, links to global organizations. cadec.ca, Association of International Development. CanadaHelps.org. canadem.ca. CanadiansOCELResearch.net. care.ca, non-profit work abroad. sedworks.com, Center for Community Enterprise. charity.ca. charity-charities.org/Canada-charities. charityvillage.com. charityvillage.com/cvhome.html. community.web.net. connections.org. imaginecanada.ca, list of non-profits. leavalegacy.ca, list of non-profits. mjra-jsi.com, ethical Canadian companies. marathonmedication.ca, run by Pfizer Drug Co. ngr.schoolnet.ca. nonprofitscan.ca. spc.lamp.org, Canadian Nonprofit Resource Network. volunteer.ca. 2110ontario.ca, directory of more than 56,000 agencies and services in Ontario. 211toronto.ca/splash.jsp, 211, a directory of over 20,000 community, social, health and government services in the Greater Toronto Area. inform.hamilton.ca, Inform Hamilton is a directory of community, social, health and government services in Hamilton. informationniagara.com, Information Niagara is a directory of community, social, health and government services for the Niagara region. Canadian Centre for Philanthropy. 2nd FL. 1329, Bay St. Toronto, on M5R2C4. 800-263-1178. 416-515-0764. Fax, 416-515-0773. ccp.ca. Canadian Council for International Cooperation. 1 Nicholas St. Number 300. Ottawa, on K1N7B7. 613-236-4547. Fax, 613-236-2188. Network of 150 plus non-profit organizations. Canadian Centre for Business in the Community. Conference Board of Canada. 255 Smith Road. Ottawa, on K1H8M7. 613-526-3280. Fax, 613-526-4857. conferenceboard.ca. Canadian Environmental Network. 251 Laurier Avenue West. Number 1004. POB 1289, STA. V. Ottawa, on K1P5R3. 613-563-2078. Fax, 613-563-7236. sen@web.apc.org. Links to 1500 plus environmental groups. Canadian International Development Agency. 5th FL. Place du Centre. 200 Promenade du Portage. Hull, QCK1A0G4. 800-230-6349. 819-997-5006. Fax, 819-953-6088. info@acdi-cida.gc.ca acdi-cida.gc.ca Canadian Government Non-Profit Agency Canada Non-Profit Organization Websites cdhow.org, CD Howe Institute, Canada opencanada.org, Canadian International Council, CIC, Canada csls.ca, Centre for the Study of Living Standards, CSLS, Canada cigionline.org, Centre for International Governance Innovation, CIGI, Canada fraserinstitute.ca, the Fraser Institute, Canada iccs-isac.org, Institute for Citizen-Centered Service, ICCS, Canada www.2.rotman.utoronto.ca/Rotman Institute for International Business, Canada ipac.ca, Institute of Public Administration of Canada, IPAC, Canada iog.ca, Institute on Governance, IOG, Canada idrc.ca, International Development Research Centre, IDRC, Canada iisd.org, International Institute for Sustainable Development, IISD, Canada yorq.ca/EKSS, York Centre for International and Security Studies, ISIS, Canada the Canadian non-profit website charityvillage.com. I think it's the big Canadian non-profit website that lists Canadian non-profits in a number of categories. charityvillage.com facebook.com/charityvillage instagram.com/charityvillage linkedin.com/company/charityvillage youtube.com/channel/uctb1afvlhva6 adugo ac54a pinterest.ca/charityvillage en.wikipedia.org/wiki/charityvillage.com twitter.com/charityvillage Chapter 2 Canadian Non-Profits Guide 2 Canadian Charities Info cra-arc.gc.ca/charts-gvngs/lstngs/?menu-eng.html, list of Canadian charities 613-946-2412-877-442-2899 cra-arc.gc.ca/tax.charities, get a deduction for donating to a charity and getting a receipt. donate2charities.ca CanadaHelps.org Canadian non-profit job websites. Most Canadian and American non-profit job websites are clumped together as one group. Refer back to the American non-profit job section. charityvillage.com/jobs/findjobs.aspx about.hsbc.ca/hsbc-in-canada/community activism-employment.ca acpd.ca Action Canada for Population and Development Women aes.gov.nl/for-employers/Canada_NL_job_grant.html aircanada.com/en/about/community/apply.html arts.org/resources/for-organizations/grants and/foundations associationjobs.ca bcjobs.ca bemeaningful.com Borders bostonpizza.com/bp-foundation/charitable-partnerships brain2more.ca ca.linkedin.com/job/nonprofit-jobs cagp-acpdp.org calgarycvo.org Calgary Chamber of Voluntary Organizations canadacharity.ca/canadian-charity-non-profit-jobs canadadrymots.ca/values/philanthropy canadahelps.org canadianbusiness.com canadiancharitylaw.ca canadian-universities.net/employment cancer.ca/en capacitycanada.ca care.ca, non-profit work abroad. careerbuilder.ca/jobs/keyword/non-profit. cba.org/cba/practicelink/careerbuilders/alternatives.aspx. ccfcanada.ca/careers-opportunities.html. ccic.ca/resources/jobs_e.php. charitycan.ca/enoza.aspx. charityemployers.com. charityintelligence.ca. charityjobsearch.com. charityvillage.com. charityvillage.com/directories.aspx. charityvillage.com/jobs. charityvillage.com/jobs/find-jobs.aspx. charityworldworks.ca. charityworldworks.ca. Charity World Works, Canada's leading non-profit jobs. childrenswish.ca. chs.ca Programs and Services Employment Services. cibc.com. CIBC Community and Sponsorship. cic.gc.ca/english/resources/tools/temp/work/opinion/charitable.asp. Community Literacy of Ontario.ca. cra-arc.gc.ca/charities-and-giving. QSO.org, 888-434-2876, Canadian version of Peace Corps, volunteer overseas. devnetjobs.org. ejobs.org. eluda.ca/non-profit-jobs-in-Mississauga-on. federationcja.org/en/who/careers. freedhechildren.com. globaljobs.org. globalphilanthropy.ca. goodwork.ca/environmental-groups. goodwork.ca/jobs. goodwork.ca/what-is-a-green-job. goodworkcanada.ca. goipi.org/ypi-resources/for-students/find-eligible-charity.html. gsk.ca NCA Responsibility Health for All. guelphcf.ca/newsbr publications/resources.aspx. habitat.ca/en/about/careers. hireme.ca, Toronto area, select the non-profit organization job category. hrcouncil.ca/about-the-sector/exploring-careers-nonprofits.cfm. hri.ca/jobbboard, Human Rights Job Board. hri.ca/jobbboard, Human Rights Job Board. hri.ca/jobbboard, Human Rights. ic.gc.ca/ec/site/cd-dgc.nsf/eng/cs04970.html. idealist.org. idealist.org/career-action without. idealist.org/career-action without borders. idealist.org/career-go to Canadian icon. idealistcareers.org/nonprofit-jobs-global. imaginecanada.ca. imaginecanada.ca. international.gc.ca Home Development. international.gc.ca/development-develop payment/jobs-emp Lois. issb.org/prim-nav/online-resources/career-resources. jobandcone.com/nonprofit_jobs_canada.htm. jobs4development.com. jobsearch.educationcanada.com. kciphilanthropy.com. kpu.ca/arts/ngo/jobs-and-training-canada. lakeheadu.ca/current-students/jobs-and-career. liftpartners.ca/make-good-better. locanto.ca jobs. marchofdimes.ca/en/about-us/careers. mcgill.ca/caps/sites/mcgill.ca/caps/files/career_nonprofit.pdf mcgill.ca/caps/students/explore/industry/nonprofit ministryemployment.ca moneyznse.ca/planning/Canada's-top-rated-charities nationaltrustcanada.ca/resources/find-funding nonprofitoyster.com nptechforgood.com onestp.on.ca employment skills training for community projects onpha.on.ca/jobs peterboroughcareers.com/careers/rss-feeds/careers/non-profit-local pggrowth.com/who-we-r facanada.ca/en/about-us/jobs philanthropy-and-aboriginal-peoples.ca/y-join/directory pillarnonprofit.ca/jobs place2give.com/about.aspx plei.publiclegal.bc.ca employment polarcom.gc.ca/eng/content/Canadian-non-governmental-organizations professional job vacancies prostatecancer.ca/about-us/careers-at-pcc reachhire.ca redcross.ca/about-us/jobs rileyguide.com/nonprof.html saskjobs.ca/jspsearch/other-job-links.jsp sasknetwork.ca/html/home/saskjobs/additional sites.htm sickkidsfoundation.com/about-us/careers simplyhired.ca/k-executive-non-profit-jobs.html sleepcountry.ca/about-us/charities.aspx spc.lamp.org Canadian non-profit resource studentlifeportal.uoit.ca/careers-services texoupcanada.ca thirdquarter.ca timeshange.org online resource center job search resources torontojobs.ca toronto-jobs.org twu.ca/academics/fhss/international/ngo-dossier.pdf, ngo careers unicef.org The United Nations Association in Canada unicef.ca Home About Us Work for UNICEF Canada unicef.ca/en/careers uwaterloo.ca/career-action/resources uwinnipeg.ca/mdp/CNIRC/career-links.html vancouvercharity.ca/non-profit-jobs volunteer.ca volunteer.ca/volunteer von.ca/careers/careers.aspx wateraidcanada.com workcabin.ca workforceplanning-hamilton.ca/links workink.com workinnonprofits.ca workcopolis.com/jobsearch/non-profit-jobs workcopolis.com/jobsearch/non-profit-jobs/Toronto-Ontario worldvision.ca/about-us/careers/pages/default.aspx wowjobs.ca ymcahrm.ns.ca/employed/jobleads.html, ymca Canadian Centre for Philanthropy 2nd FL 1329 Bay St. Toronto, on M5R2C4 800-263-1178 416-515-0764 Fax 416-515-0773 ccp.ca Canadian Council for International Cooperation 1 Nicholas St. Number 300 Ottawa, on K1N7B7. 613-236-4547. Fax, 613-236-2188. Network of 150 plus non-profit organizations. Canadian Centre for Business in the Community. Conference Board of Canada. 255 Smith Road, Ottawa, on K1H8M7. 613-526-3280. Fax, 613-526-4857. Conferenceboard.ca. Canadian Environmental Network. 251 Laurier Avenue West, number 1004. POG 1289, STA. B. Ottawa, on K1P5R3. 613-563-2078. Fax, 613-563-7236. sen@web.apc.org. Links to 1500 plus environmental groups. Canadian International Development Agency. 5th FL. Place du Centre. 200 Promenade du Portage. Hull, QCK1A0G4. 800-230-6349. 819-997-5006. Fax, 819-953-6088. info@acdi-cida.gc.ca. acdi-cida.gc.ca. Canadian Government Non-Profit Agency. Canadian Non-Profits/Canadian NGOs. worldvision.ca. dailybread.ca, Daily Bread Food Bank, dedicated to eliminating hunger in and around Toronto. goodwill.on.ca. 2tiers.org, Club 2/3, French. accc.ca, Association of Canadian Community Colleges. achiskenya.org, African Canadian Continuing Education Society. acdi-cida.gc.ca, Canadian International Development Agency. acic-caci.org, Atlantic Council for International Cooperation. acp-cpa.ca, Peace Alliance. acpd.ca, Action Canada for Population Development. ax.ca, Africa Community Technical Service. adra.ca, adra@web.net, Adventist Development and Relief Agency. afscanada.org, AFS Interculture. aimcanada.org, Africa Inland Mission International. ainfos.ca. akfc.org, AGACON Foundation. Alternatives.ca, Large Group, Diverse Interests. AMI.ca, L'aide médicale internationale à l'enfance. Amnesty.ca. amnesty.qc.ca, Amnesty International French. amraf.org, Africal Medical and Research Foundation. amtak.com/frontiers, help rural communities. Anglican.ca. anglican.ca/vim, volunteers in mission. animalalliance.ca. apfc.ca, Asia Pacific Foundation. aqoc.qc.ca, International Cooperation, French. argoon.com/gems of hope, community development. aucc.ca, Association of Universities and Colleges. bccic.bc.ca/bccic web, BC Council for International Cooperation, links to global organizations. bccic.org, BC Council for International Cooperation. bellanit.org, Computer Education. best.bc.ca, Better Environmentally Sound Transportation. bulgarii.net, Culture Quebec Bulgaria. cadc.ca, Association of International Development. canadahelps.org. canadahelps.org. canadem.ca. canadem.ca, helps out worldwide. canadiancednetwork.org, 202-2268, Community Economic Development. CanadianCurrent.com. CanadianFeedTheChildren.ca. CanadianHarambe.ca, Harambe Education Society. Canadians.org/campaigns. CanadiansOCELResearch.net. CANCRC.org, Organization for Bank Accountability. Care.ca, Nonprofit work abroad. CareersWithoutBorders.com. CaringForKids.cps.ca. CARREFOUR-TIERS-MONDE.org, French group. KMT.on.ca, Children's Aid, Toronto. Cause.ca, Sustainable Development Projects in Poor Countries. CAW.ca/Watwedo/Social Justice Fund, Auto Workers Union. CBA.org, Bar Association. CBIE.ca, Bureau of International Education. CBMI-CAN.org, CBMICanada.org, Christian Blind Mission International. CCAS.toronto.on.ca, Catholic Children's Aid. CCC-CCE.ca, Council of Churches. CCFcanada.ca, Christian Children's Fund. CCFcanada.ca, Children's Fund. CCIC.ca, International Cooperation. CCIorg.ca, Crossroads International. CCISD.org, French Organization, Health and Development International. CCMAcanada.org, Minority Affairs. CCP.ca. CCSD.ca, Council on Social Development. CEC.org, Environmental Cooperation. CECI.ca, Canadian Centre for International Studies and Cooperation. CECnetwork.ca, Canadian Education Centre Network. CEDWorks.com, Community Economic Development. CEN-RCE.org, Environmental Network. CENTRESO-SAGLAC.org, Solidarity International, French. CESO-SACO.com, Canadian Executive Service Organization. CFA-FCA.ca, Federation of Agriculture. CFC-EFC.ca/CCRE, Rights of Children. CFH.ca, Food for the Hungry. CFOB.org, Friends of Burma. ChangeForChildren.org. Charity.ca. CharityCard.ca/VehicleDonation.html. CharityVillage.com. CharityVillage.com/CVHome.html. Chia.ca, Canadian Home Economics Association. CHF-PARTNERS.ca, International Community Development. CHRF.ca, Human Rights Foundation. CIP-ICU.ca, Institute of Planners. CLAIHR.org, Canadian Lawyers for International Human Rights. CLC-CTC.ca, Canadian Labour Congress. CLWR.org, Lutheran World Relief. CMDS-EMAS.ca, Evangelical Medical Aid Society. CME-MEC.ca, Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. CNA-AIIC.ca, Canadian Nurses Association. CNIB.ca, Canadian Institute for the Blind. CNIS.ca, International Surgery. Kakamo.com, Cooperation Canada Mozambique. Codecan.org, Development through Education, Literacy. CodeV.org, Co-Development Canada. COL.org, Commonwealth of Learning. comdine.com/med-hat/unisphere, Global Resource Center. comminute.com, Communication Initiative. commonwealthgames.ca, jcommonwealth.ca. community.web.net. compassion.ca. connections.org. coopcca.com, Cooperative Association. cpar.ca, Canadian Physicians for Aid and Relief. CPAR.ca, Physicians for Aid and Relief. CPHA.ca, Canadian Public Health Association. CRCID.org, Canadian Rotary Committee for International Development. CRCNA.org, Christian Reformed World Relief Committee of Canada. Crediel.qc.ca, Regional Education for International Development, French. Crossroads.ca, Crossroads International. Crudem.ca, French. CRWRC.org, Christian Reformed World Relief Committee. CS.org, Cultural Survival. cscanada.org/CSC, Cultural Survival, helps Native people keep their culture. CSIH.org, Canadian Society for International Health. CSIQuebec.org, Health International, French. CSISHER.com, Solidarity International, French. CTF-FCE.ca, Canadian Teachers Federation. QSO.org, helps people overseas. CVMCanada.org, Christian Veterinary Missions. CWY-JCM.org, Canada World Youth. Cybersolidaires.org, French group. Cyberus.ca/helpage, help the aged. Dailybread.ca. Defenseforchildren.org. DEMOCRACY250.ca. DevP.org, Catholics for Development and Peace. DFAIT-maeci.gc.ca/EU-mission, European Communities. DID.qc.ca, Development International Desjardins. Disabilitiestudies.ca. Dominionpaper.ca. Domino.christian-horizons.org, helps people with developmental disabilities in Ontario. DPI.org, Disabled People International. drlata.ca, USC. earthbeat.sk.ca. earthsave.bc.ca. e-i.org, Emmanuel International, Church Group. equipkids.org, Equip Kids in Developing Societies. er.uquam.ca/nobel/r14160/economics, list of worldwide economic resources. escape.ca/MCIC, Manitoba Council for International Cooperation. etc. group.org, Action Group on Erosion, Technology, and Erosion. ethicsinAction.com. ewb.ca, Engineers Without Borders. EYA.ca, Environmental Youth Alliance. iWare.com/excel/SEVA, Seva Service Development and Eye Care in Poor Countries. Fallsbrookcenter.ca, Sustainable Development. Familiesforchildren.ca, India. FamilyDaycare.com, Toronto area. FarmRadio.org. FCM.ca, Federation of Canadian Municipalities. FeedNovaScotia.ca. FFIT.org, Foundation for International Training. FIT.ca, Forum for International Trade Training. FixOurHighways.ca. Focal.ca, Foundation for the Americas. FoundationPGL.ca, Foundation Paul Jaron LaJoy. FoodGrainsBank.ca. ForumFed.org, Forum of Federations. FosterParentsPlan.ca. FRadical.com, Canadian Activists. GemsOfHope.org. GiveGroceries.com. GlobalDev.org, Global Development. GlobalResearch.ca, Center for Research on Globalization. GlobalVision.ca, GVConnects.com, Youth Programs in International Trade. Goodwill.on.ca. Goshen.net/aim-ca, African Inland Mission. gov.bc.ca/guess, Green Economy Initiative. greenpeacecanada.org, greenpeace.ca. Habitat.ca, Habitat for Humanity. halifaxinitiative.org. halifaxpeacecoalition.ca. handicap-international.org. havioursaecanada.com. helptheaged.ca. hope-international.com. horizons.ca, Horizons of Friendship. hri.ca, Human Rights Internet. humanconcern.org. humanitariancoalition.ca. humansecurity.info, Study of Global Issues. iatcan.org, International Association for Transformation. icacan.ca, Institute of Cultural Affairs. icad-cisd.com, International Coalition on AIDS and Development. icmd-cidm.ca, International Enter for Municipal Development. icomem.ca, Internet service provider which helps Canadian non-profits. icsw.org/socdev, International Council on Social Welfare. idirect.ca/hope, Hope International Development Agency, Water Projects and Agriculture in Poor Countries. idrc.ca, International Development Research Center. idrf.ca, International Development and Relief Foundation. iepf.org, Energy and Environment, French. iim.qc.ca, Intercultural Institute of Montreal. iisd.ca, International Institute for Sustainable Development. ima.org, Marine Mammal Association. impacs.bc.ca, impacs.org, Institute for Media, Policy and Civil Society. incommon.eb.net, Social Service Organization. infactcanada.ca, Infant Feeding Action Coalition Canada, International. interlog.com/CCM, Minority Affairs. inter-nationalneeds.com. inter-nationalneeds.org. interpairs.ca, Social Justice. intlchildcare.org. intranet.ca/fo, Friends of the Earth. introspect.ca, Homelessness. iwc.org, Wildlife Coalition. jesuits.ca. jeunesse-du-monde.qc.ca, Youth of the World, French. jhr.ca, Journalists for Human Rights. jshcanada.org, Jamaican Self-Help. kairoscanada.org, Canadian Ecumenical Justice Initiatives. Catamavic.org, Youth Work Corps. kinclubs.ca. landtrust.org/Turtle Island, Turtle Island Earth Stewards Society, Environmental. larchecanada.com, Mentally Challenged People. lcclc.org, London Cross Cultural Learner Centre. lejournalcanadian.com. lifecyclesproject.ca, Local Focus, Victoria, BC. lifestylesmag.com, Jewish Charities. mad.ca, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. mafc.org, Mission Aviation Fellowship Canada. magi.com/VSO Volunteer Service Overseas. makepovertyhistory.ca. mapken.org, Medical Assistance. maquilasolidarity.org. marqueeproject.com. maw.org, Make-A-Wish. mbmission.org, Mennonite Brethren Mission and Service International. mbnet.mb.ca/CLWR, Canadian Lutheran World Relief. mbnet.mb.ca/OCOD, Organization for Cooperation in Overseas Development. mcgill.ca/Brace, Water Resources Management. mcic.ca, Manitoba Council for International Cooperation. mdathelian.com, Muscular Dystrophy. meta.org, Mennonite Economic Development Associates. medicinesdumonde.ca, Medicine to the World, French. mennonitecc.ca, mcc.org, Mennonite Central Committee. metowe.com, Hungry Children. mi.mun.ca, Marine Institute. MiningWatch.ca. MJRA-JSI.com, Ethical Canadian Companies. Mobinet.com/mbms, Mennonite Brethren Missions/Services. Monde.ca, French. MSF.ca, Doctors Without Borders BR, Médecins Sans Frontières. MSF.org, Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. Museums.ca. NALD.ca, Literacy. NatureConservancy.ca. NCCAR.ca, National Council on Canada-Arab Relations. NEWINT.org, Global Social Justice Focus. NextCity.com/Probe International, Environmental. NGR.Schoolnet.ca. NSI-INS.ca, North-South Institute, Research on World Finance and International Relations, Canadian Voluntary Agencies and Third World. NSNT.ca, Nova Scotia Nature Trust. OCC.ON.ca, Ontario Council for International Cooperation. OCSA.ON.ca. OMF.ca, Religious Missionary. Oneski.ca, Canadian Institute for Sustainable Living. OnlineDemocracy.ca. Operation Eyesight.ca. OperationRainbowCanada.com, Medical. OPIRG-CARLETON.org, Public Interest Group. OpportunityCanada.ca, Christian, Business Help. ORT.org/ortnet.htm, Organization for Educational Resources and Technological Training. Oxfam.ca, helps poor people overseas. Oxfam.qc.ca, French. PacificPeoplesPartnership.org, helps Pacific Islanders. PacWeb.org, Partnership Africa. PageMaker.com/Shriners. Parlcent.ca, Parliamentary Center. Partners.ca, Partners in Rural Development. PathCanada.org, Medical. PCS.mb.ca/CCD, Council of Canadians with Disabilities. Peace.ca. Peace.ca/Africa, African Centers for Peace Education and Training. Peacebrigades.org. Peaceoperations.org. Peopleforgood.ca. Perk.flora.org, Peace and Environment Resource Center. PlanCanada.ca. PlentyCanada.com. Plowshares.ca, Christian, Demilitarization. PogGE.ca, Peace, Order and Good Government, et. PolicyAlternatives.ca, Social Service Organization. PPFC.ca, Planned Parenthood. PPI-PPIC.org, Potash and Phosphate Institute of Canada. Presbyterian.ca, Presbyterian Church International Ministries. Presbyterian.ca/PWSD, World Service and Development. ProbeInternational.org, Environmental. ProtectCanada.ca, Nature Conservancy. ProtectCanada.ca, Wildlife. PSC-CFP.gc.ca/INTPGM/EPB7_E.htm, Addresses of international organizations. BBB.org/bureaus/Canadian/ASP. Pueblito.org, Latin America. PWRDF.org, Primate World Relief and Development Fund. QE2FOUNDATION.ca, Halifax, Healthcare. Rabble.ca. RAFI.ca, Rural Advancement Foundation International, Agricultural Technology Aid to Poor Countries. Reboot.on.ca, Help Canadian Non-Profits with Computers. Redcross.ca. Redar.ca, Engineers for Disaster Relief Training. RefugeeCamp.ca. RenewFbooks.com, Books. RespondWithCompassion.ca. RESULTS-RESULTATS.ca, End Hunger and Poverty. RightsOfChildren.ca. RightTeoplai.com, Help Poor Kids Play Sports. RightAid.ca. Rooftops.ca, housing. safp.org, Save a Family Plan, St. Peter's Seminary, helps families in poor countries. Salinet.org. salvaide.ca, Latin America. salvationarmy.ca. samaritanspurse.ca, samaritan.org, Christian. sapcanada.org, South Asia Partnership. savethechildren.ca. escarboroughmissions.ca. seva.ca, International Development. sierraclub.ca, Conservation. sim.org, Serving in Mission, Missionary and Development Work Abroad. s-j-c.net, Social Justice Committee. smilesfoundation.org, Dental and Health. socialjustice.org. socodevi.org, French. sapar.ca, Society for Partnership, Poverty. soschildrensvillages.ca, Housing, World. spc.lamp.org, Canadian Nonprofit Resource Network. sponsorme.ca. sbpf.org, South Pacific People's Foundation, helps poor people. StephenLewisFoundation.org, AIDS. sdfx.ca/institutes/Coady, International Institute, dedicated to the growth of a humane society. StoppedHeNet.ca, World Wildlife Fund, save the oceans and fish. StreetKids.org, helps street kids worldwide. suco.org, French. synapse.net/path Canada, improves health in poor countries. TakingItGlobal.org, youth group. tdh.ca, Terre d'Homme, French group. 10thousandvillages.com, helps poor artists sell their crafts. TheCalgaryFoundation.org. TheFuturygroup.org. TheHumanitarianCoalition.ca. ThesIRedmondHillaryFoundation.ca. Together.ca. ToolsForLearning.ca, Canadian Physicians for Aid and Relief. Trendlines.ca. TrudeauSociety.com. ualberta.ca/sequence/results, responsibility for ending starvation utilizing legislation. ucan.org, United Church World Outreach. unici.org, United Nations Association in Canada. unicef.ca, an International Children's Emergency Fund. united-church.ca. unitedwaytoronto.com. upanet.uleth.ca/world citizen, World Citizen Center. usc-canada.org, Unitarian Service Committee, helps the poor worldwide. uswa.ca/steelworkers, Steelworkers Humanity Fund, helps poor people. uwc-cc.ca. vcn.bc.ca/IDERA, International Development Education Resource Association, lend films and believe Native cultures should make their own films, have internship programs. Volunteer.ca. VolunteerInternational.ca. vsocan.org, Voluntary Service Overseas. waramps.ca. warchild.ca. watercan.com, Clean Water Agenda. waterlooregion.org/CNRN. web.apc.org. web.net, links to non-profits. web.net/TCCR, churches and corporate responsibility. web.net/10days, 10 days for global justice, umbrella organization of religious groups supporting global justice. web.net/CCIC-CCCI, social service organization. wellsofhope.com. wildernesscommittee.org. worldaccord.org. worldcommunity.ca, World Community Development Education Society. worldfederalistscanada.org. worldlit.ca, literacy. worldvision.ca. worldoutHcenter.com. wrcanada.org, World Relief Canada. wusc.ca, World University Service of Canada, large non-profit group offers internships to students at worldwide helping projects. WWF.ca, Wildlife. WWFCanada.org, World Wildlife Fund. YCI.org, Youth Challenge International, 3-month stints worldwide. YMCA.ca. YouthActionNetwork.org. YWCACanada.ca, Young Women's Christian Association. ZU.com/beta/Chia, Home Economics Association. Canadian Centre for Philanthropy. 2nd FL. 1329, Bay St. Toronto, on M5R2C4. 800-263-1178. 416-515-0764. Fax, 416-515-0773. ccp.ca. Canadian Council for International Cooperation. 1 Nicholas St. Number 300. Ottawa, on K1N7B7. 613-236-4547. Fax, 613-236-2188. Network of 150-plus non-profit organizations. Canadian Centre for Business in the Community. Conference Board of Canada. 255 Smith Road. Ottawa, on K1H8M7. 613-526-3280. Fax, 613-526-4857. Conferenceboard.ca. Canadian Environmental Network. 251 Laurier Avenue West. Number 1004. POG 1289, STA. B. Ottawa, on K1P5R3. 613-563-2078. Fax, 613-563-7236. sen@web.apc.org. Links to 1500-plus environmental groups. Canadian International Development Agency. 5th FL. Place du Centre. 200 Promenade du Portage. Hull, QCK1A0G4. 800-230-6349. 819-997-5006. Fax, 819-953-6088. info@acdi-cida.gc.ca. acdi-cida.gc.ca. Canadian Government Non-Profit Agency. Canadian Grant Websites. cnbd.ca, Government Grants Canada. grants-loans.org, Small Business Consumer Centre. grantcanada.com, Canadian Government Grants, Loans and Assistance Programs. Grants are available for business, research, education, tourism, arts, and more. grantscanadian.ca, Canadian Government. canada-grants.ca. accessgovernmentgrants.com. Canadian Grants Businesscentre.com. businessguide.net. canadacouncil.ca. canadian-grants.ca. fundingebook.ca. leadershipgrants.ca. grantcanadian.ca. freecanadiangrants.ca. Canadian Centre for Philanthropy. 425 University Avenue. Number 700. Toronto, on M5G1T6. 800-263-1178. 416-597-2293. Fax, 416-597-2294. general@ccp.ca. ccp.ca. Publishes the Canadian Directory to Foundations and Grants, which is available in book form or online for a fee. Most of the information comes from registered charity tax returns, Form T3010. Canada Revenue Agency/CRA. 2204 Walkley Road. Ottawa, on K1A1A8. 800-267-2384. 800-959-8281, General Questions. 800-267-5177. cra-arc.gc.ca. When doing research on a nonprofit/charity, you can buy their tax return for a small fee. Some foundations and grants are as follows: canadian-grants.loans.org, then ba.ca, cnbd.ca, Government Grants Canada, for new/existing business 1-888-922-2623, alva.ca, helps children at risk, atkinsonfdn.on.ca, social justice, bronfmanfoundation.org, social and educational, canadianliving.com/blf, Better Living Foundation, food for children, canadiantire.com, Canadian Tire Foundation for families, canfar.com, Canadian Foundation for AIDS Research, cdnwomen.org, Canadian Women's Foundation, cfgk.org, Community Foundation of Greater Kingston, Ontario, cfwh.org, Canadian Foundation for Women's Health, childrensmiracle.com, helps children, chumayarethicsfoundation.calgary.ab.ca, ethical leadership to better society, cibc.com, CIBC Charitable Foundation, the bank, comm-fdn.pe.ca, Community Foundation of Pay, communityfoundationottawa.ca, consideritedone.com, 902-422-6277, fundraising consultation, Canada, cp.ca, Canadian Pacific Charitable Foundation, counseling.net, Counseling Foundation of Canada, cvcfoundation.org, Comox Valley Community Foundation, Deere.com, John Deere Foundation of Canada, medical, education, culture, DonnorFoundation.org, economy, citizenship, environmental, ecfoundation.org, Edmonton Community Foundation, ejlb.qc.ca, environmental, medical research, fcf.nb.ca, Fundy Community Foundation, St. Andrew, NB, fcommunautaire.com, Fondation Communautaire du Grand Québec, fef.ca, Friends of the Environment Foundation, run by TD Bank, fondatation-langlois.org, Foundation for Art, Science and Technology, franco-manitobain.org/francophones, French culture in Manitoba, glaxowellcome.com, Glaxo Wellcome Foundation, Health, gordonfn.org, Canadian culture, gov.ab.ca/wrf, Wild Rose Foundation, helps volunteer organizations, hbc.com, Hudson's Bay Charitable Foundation, Children's Foundation, History Foundation, Arts and Education, history.ca, Historica Foundation of Canada, Culture and History, homewoodhealth.com, Homewood Health Foundation, Mental Health Research, HuroniaCommunities.com, Midland, on, iga.nl.net, International Grenfell Association, Arts and Education in Newfoundland, imperialoil.ca, Imperial Oil Charitable Foundation, Arts and Education, ivy.org, Ivy Foundation, Arts, Education, Environment, jewishfoundation.org, jp-group.com, Jim Pattison Foundation, Christian Causes, Medical, kahanoff.com, Arts, Education, Medical, kaufman.ca, Kaufman Charitable Foundation, Medical, kidsaction.com, Physical Disabilities in Children, Toronto, kpmg.ca, KPMG Educational Foundation, kwcommfdn.com, Kitchener-Waterloo Community Foundation, laidlawfdn.org, support many causes, landcentre.ca/foundation, Real Estate Foundation of BC. lawfoundationbc.org, Social Justice BC. lawson.on.ca, Medical, Addictions. lcf.on.ca, London Community Foundation. leonardfnd.org, Educational, Religious. lowen.com, Lowen Family Foundation, helps out in Manitoba. maxbell.org, Health and Education. Matri.com, Social Services, Immigration. mcconnellfoundation.ca, Culture, Medical, Educational. mcleanfoundation.on.ca, Variety of Interests. mennofoundation.ca, Mennonite Foundation. metcalffoundation.com, Charitable Foundation. minervafoundation.ab.ca, Community Services. malson.com, Malson Donations Fund. muddit.org, Muddit Foundation. nickelfoundation.org, Community, Charitable Projects in Alberta. ondatia.com, Arts and Culture. onf.org, Ontario Neurotrauma Foundation. ouc.bc.ca/cof, Central Okanagan Foundation, Kelowna, BC, Charitable. pacoast.com, Pacific Coast Savings Foundation, Education, Community. royalbank.com/community/donations/index. royalpage.ca/shelters, helps with women's shelters. saint-john-foundation.nb.ca, helps with causes around St. John, NB. seagullputer.com, Environmental, Atlantic Provinces. sickkids.on.ca, sickkids.ca, Hospital for Sick Kids Foundation. sifton.com, Charitable Foundation. telus.com/telus fund, grants for media projects. thecalgaryfoundation.org, Cultural, Charitable, Educational. thecfo.org, Community Foundation of Oakville, on. thompsonfoundation.mb.ca, Thompson Community Foundation, MB. tidescanada.org, Social Justice. trilliumfoundation.org, Arts and Culture, Social Services, Government of Ontario. utoronto.ca/bantarisf, Medical Research. vancity.com/vcf, Vancity Community Foundation, Vancouver. vancouverfoundation.bc.ca. victoriafoundation.bc.ca. wpgfdn.org, Winnipeg Foundation. zajic.com, helps the disabled and seniors. zlc.net, Zlotnick, Lamb and Co., Medical Causes. Canadian Animal Non-Profits. cfhs.ca, Canadian Federation of Humane Societies. shecanada.ca, She Canada, Humane Society International, Canada. adoptananimal.ca, Adopt an Animal. albertasbca.org, Alberta Humane Society. calgaryhumane.ca, Calgary Humane Society. hamiltonspca.com, Hamilton SPCA, the Hamilton/Burlington SPCA. kismutt.com/Canada Pup, Canada No Puppy Mills. Ontario's PCA.ca. ratterrierrescue.ca, Rat Terrier Rescue Canada. spca.bc.ca, BC SPCA, the British Columbia Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, BC SPCA. speakingofdogs.com, Speaking of Dogs, a Toronto-based organization. tejasanimalrefuge.ca, Tejas Animal Refuge. Tejas Animal Refuge's goal is to help all animals. If they can't take them, their mission is to find them a home. TorontoHumaneSociety.com, Toronto Humane Society. Canada Non-Government Organizations. cdhow.org, C.D. Howe Institute. theccf.ca, Canadian Constitution Foundation. carleton.ca/cfpj/links.html, Canadian Foreign Policy and Links. CIPPIC.ca, Canadian Internet Policy and Public Interest Clinic. Canadian International Council.org, Canadian International Council. Policy.ca/policy-directory/detailed/Canadian-International-Affairs-271.html. Consumer.ca/N, Consumers Association of Canada. dwatch.ca, Democracy Watch, Ottawa. FraserInstitute.org, the Fraser Institute. MackenzieInstitute.com, Mackenzie Institute. OCAP.ca, Ontario Coalition Against Poverty. PolarisInstitute.org, Polaris Institute. PowerCorporation.com, Power Corporation of Canada. RSC-SRC.ca, Royal Society of Canada. ScienceForPeace.ca, Science for Peace Canada. Chapter 3. Canadian Non-Profits Guide 3. Canadian Human Rights. CHRC.ca, CHRC-CCDP.ca, 888-643-3304, Canadian Human Rights Commission. CHRC.CCDP.ca, Canadian Human Rights Commission. orc.on.ca/en/resources/links, CHRC-CCDP.ca, the Canadian Human Rights Commission. nwhumanrights.ca, NW Territories. HRI.ca, Human Rights Internet. hrsdc.gc.ca/en/lp/ohs/overview.html, Canada Labour Code. uottawa.ca/hrrec, Human Rights Research and Education Centre, University of Ottawa. insight.mcmaster.ca/org/f/pages/law/charter/charter.head.html, Canadian Charter on Rights and Freedoms. ccla.org, Canadian Civil Liberties Association. hri.ca, Human Rights Internet. uottawa.ca/hrrec, Human Rights Research and Education Centre, University of Ottawa. hrsdc.gc.ca/en/lp/ohs/publications/overview.html, Canada Labour Code. Canadian Human Rights Commission, 344 Slater Street, 8th FL, Ottawa, on K1A1E1. 613-995-1151. 888-214-1090. CHRC-CCDP.ca. 800-999-6899. Administers the Canadian Human Rights Act and the Employment Equity Act. Provincial Human Rights Offices. Alberta Human Rights and Citizenship Commission. Standard Life Centre. 1600-10405 Jasper Avenue, Edmonton, Alberta, T5J4R7. 403-427-3116. 403-495-4040. 403-427-1597, TDD. Fax, 403-422-3563. British Columbia Human Rights Commission. 2nd floor. 844 Courtney Street, Victoria, British Columbia V8V1X4. 250-387-3710. 800-663-0876. 250-953-4911, TDD. Fax, 250-387-3643. British Columbia Human Rights Commission. 306-815 Hornby Street, Vancouver, British Columbia V6Z2E6. 604-660-6811. 604-666-2251. 800-663-0876. 604-660-2252, TDD. Fax, 604-660-0195. Manitoba Human Rights Commission. 301 to 259 Portage Avenue, Winnipeg, Manitoba R3B2A9. 204-945-3007. 204-983-2189. 800-282-8069. 204-945-3442, TDD. Fax, 204-945-1292. New Brunswick Human Rights Commission. 751 Brunswick Street, Box 6000. Fredericton, New Brunswick E3B5H1. 800-565-1752. 506-453-2301. 506-453-2911, TDD. Fax, 506-453-2653. Newfoundland Human Rights Commission. POB 8700. St. John's, NFA 1B4J6. 709-729-2709. 800-563-5808. Fax, 709-729-0790. Northwest Territories. Canadian Human Rights Commission Edmonton. 403-495-4040. Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission. Lord Nelson Arcade, 7th floor. 5675 Spring Garden Road. Box 2221. Halifax, Nova Scotia B3J3C4. 800-565-1752. 877-269-7699. 902-426-8380. 902-424-4111. 902-424-3139, TDD. Fax, 902-424-0596. gov.ns.ca/humanrights. Ontario Human Rights Commission. 180 Dundas Street West. 8th floor. Toronto, Ontario M7A2R9. 416-314-4500. 416-973-5527, Toronto. 613-996-5211, Ottawa. 800-387-9080. 416-314-4535, TDD. Fax, 416-314-4533. PE1 Human Rights Commission. 3 Queen Street. Box 2000. Charlottetown, Pay CIA 7 and 8. 902-368-4180. 800-237-5031. Fax, 902-368-4236. Commission des droits de la personne. Et des droits de la jeunesse du Québec. 360, Rue St. Jacques. Montreal, Quebec H2Y1P5. 514-873-5146. 514-283-5218. 800-361-6477. Fax, 514-873-6032. Saskatchewan Human Rights Commission. 122, 3rd Avenue North, 8th floor. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan S7K2H6. 306-933-5952. 800-667-9249. 306-373-2119, TDD. Fax, 306-933-7863. Yukon Human Rights Commission. 205 Rogers Street. Whitehorse, Yukon Territory Y1ALXI. 867-667-6226. 800-661-0535. Fax, 867-667-2662. Activism/Civil Rights Canada. acdi-cida.gc.ca, Canadian International Development Agency. acjnet.org, Access to Justice Network. acp-cpa.ca, Canadian Peace Alliance. albertahumanrights.ab.ca. albertawilderness.ca, Alberta Wilderness Association. amnesty.ca, Amnesty International. bcclaw.org, British Columbia Civil Liberties Association. breadnotcircuses.org. briarpatch.com, briarpatchmagazine.com, Social Activism. calkene.ab.ca/bcbc, Bao Chinook Barter Community. canadiandimension.mb.ca, Social Activism. Canadians.org, Council of Canadians. casw-acts.ca, Social Work. caveat.org. cbc.ca/newsreel. ccsd.ca, Welfare Issues. cd.gov.ab.ca, Alberta Community Development. cd.gov.ab.ca/helping_albertans/human_ry. ts/cen-rce.org, Canadian Environmental Network. chekiouriad.org. chrc.ca, Canadian Human Rights Commission. chrc-ccdp.ca, the Canadian Human Rights Commission. canadianlabour.ca, Canadian Labour Congress. communityaction.ca. comotion.net. consumer.ca. crr.ca, Canadian Race Relations Foundation. cs.ubc.ca/spider/fuller/apec_alert, APEC alert. davidsuzuki.org, David Suzuki Foundation. democracystreet.tao.ca. democratic-earth.org. dfait-maeci.gc.ca, Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. dwatch.ca, Democracy Watch. agali.ca, Equality for Gays and Lesbians Everywhere. energyprobe.org. fairvotecanada.org. familyaction.org, Canada Family Action Coalition. fanweb.org, Forest Action Network. fes.uwaterloo.ca/research/environments. ffef.ca, fef.ca, Foundation for Equal Families. flora.org/earthaction. fox.nsdn.ca/greenweb, friendsofmedicare.ab.ca, Friends of Medicare. gn.apc.org, GreenNet. greenpeacecanada.org. guncontrol.ca. healthcoalition.ca, Canadian Health Coalition. helpemakeadifference.com. hfxpeace.chebucto.org, Halifax, NS, Canada Peace Group. hiddenhomeless.ca. hri.ca, Human Rights Canada. humanistincanada.com. humanists.net. hrdd.ca, International Centre for Human Rights and Democratic Development. idrc.ca, International Development Research Council. ifaw.org, International Fund for Animal Welfare. interlog.com/Wakeford, the Wakeford Medical Marijuana website. irpp.org, Institute for Research on Public Policy. leaf.ca, the Women's Legal Education and Action Fund. livesite.net/CLC, Campaign Life Coalition. mcmaster.ca/org/FC, Electronic Frontier Federation. mcmaster.ca/org/efc/pages/law/charter/charter.text, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. mun.ca/cclh, labor. mycommunityinformation.com. mycommunityinformation.com/CADA, Cultural Diversity Association. narr.org, Northern Alberta Alliance on Race Relations. newmindspace.org, parties in the subway. newsocialist.org, social activism. newsociety.com. nfa.ca, National Firearms Association. north.nsis.com/Eagles Save Our Seas and Shores. nsra-adnf.ca, Non-Smokers' Rights Association. ontarionature.org, Federation of Ontario Naturalists. oqe.org, Organization for Quality Education. ourtimes.ca, Labour. oxfam.ca, Food Organization. pch.gc.ca/ddp-hrd/english/introing, Human Rights Directorate. pch.gc.ca, Diversity and Multiculturalism. pch.gc.ca/prog/pdp-hrp/links- lean/index_e.cfm, Human Rights Program. pencanada.ca, Intellectual Freedom. peopleforeducation.com. pollutionprobe.org. psc.ca, Public Interest Advocacy Center. ran.org, Rainforest Action Coalition. ruckus.org, Ruckus Society. rmec.org/cogc, Citizens Oil and Gas Council. schoolnet.ca/lang_soc/law, Legal Issues. seashepherd.org, Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. sfu.ca/newswatch. sierraclub.ca, Sierra Club of Canada. sierralegal.org, Sierra Legal Defense Fund. sierraeouth-coalition.org. simpiatico.ca/sworker, social worker. takingitglobal.org. tao.ca/no_oil, end of oil coalition. tao.ca/ocap, Ontario Coalition Against Poverty. taxpayer.com, Canadian Taxpayers Federation. ucalgary.ca/d toolkit, diversity. unac.org, United Nations in Canada. unac.org/rights. uottawa.ca/hrrec/hrc, Human Rights Research and Education Center. upei.ca/cmartin/ecopay, Environmental Coalition of PEI. vrx.net/aar, Artists Against Racism. web20.mindlandk.net/chrr, Canadian Human Rights Reporter. web.net/allfori, Alliance for Employment Equity. web.net/ccr, Canadian Council for Refugees. web.net/CELA, Canadian Environmental Law Association. Canadian volunteering websites. volunteer.ca, Volunteering, Canada's site for information on volunteering. cwy-jcm.org, Volunteering, Canada World Youth. charityvillage.com, Volunteering, Charity Village. cuso.org, Volunteering, Canadian-based international development organization. idealist.org, Volunteering, Idealist. thestudentvolunteer.com, Volunteering, Volunteer Abroad. feds.ca/employment-section/volunteer-opportunities, volunteering in Kitchener-Waterloo area, University of Waterloo, Federation of Students. leads.uwaterloo.ca/job/postings. volunteerkw.ca, Volunteering in Kitchener-Waterloo area, Volunteer Action Centre. uwcambridge.on.ca/number/volunteer-cambridge/452834039, Volunteering in Kitchener-Waterloo area, Volunteer Cambridge Service of the United Way of Cambridge and North Dumfries. lutherwood.ca, Volunteering in Kitchener-Waterloo area, Volunteer at Lutheran Irwood. projectread.ca, Volunteering in Kitchener-Waterloo area, Volunteer at Project Read. volunteertoronto.ca, Volunteering in Toronto, Volunteer Centre of Toronto. unitedway.ca/community. canadahelps.org. unitersra.org. care.ca/main/index.php ? and &home, care Canada. redcross.ca. cuso.org/volunteer, overseas. Placement. vsocan.org. cbmin.org, Canadian Baptist Ministries. surf.bc.ca, Canada. cj.qc.ca, 800-361-2055, Work Camps, Quebec. cq.qc.ca, Work Camps, Canada. crossroads-carrefour.ca. cuso.org, 888-434-2876, Canadian version of Peace Corps, volunteer overseas. dfait-maeci.gc.ca/123go/menu-n.asp. frameworkfoundation.ca. frontiersfoundation.org. gap.ca/Cancama Canada. givingandvolunteering.ca. iyvcanada.org, major volunteering network. ontarionature.org, Canada. pan4gold.com. pch.gc.ca/cyberstation, 866-811-0055, community projects. salvationarmy.ca. sapcanada.org, South Asian. schoolswithoutborders.com, youth leadership through volunteer placements in Brazil, Nepal, Kenya, India. swap.ca, student work abroad program, a working holiday program for Canadians in the UK, Ireland, France, Germany, etc. trrp.org, Rainforest Canada. trrp.org/opportunities, temperate rainforest research. veahavita.org, Jewish Shariable Group. voe-reb.org, volunteer.ca, 800-670-0401. volnet.org, 800-575-9200, government program, helps volunteer organizations get online, etc. volunteernow.ca. vsocanada.org. wildernesscommittee.org. wwusa.com/Canada. yci.org. youlead.org. youthinternational.org, one-semester programs to Asia, Africa. Canadian Crossroads International. 31 Madison Avenue, Toronto, on M5R2S2. 416-967-0801. Fax, 416-967-9078. crossroads@web.apc.org. crossroads-carrefour.ca. Volunteer in 30-plus countries. CUSO. 2255 Carling Avenue. Number 400. Ottawa, on K2B1A6. 613-829-7445. Fax, 613-829-7996. cusocan@web.apc.org. Canadian version of Peace Corps. Eco-volunteer. C/O Great Canadian. Travel Company. 158 Fort St. Winnipeg, Manitoba, R3C1C9. Canada. 800-661-3830. ecovolunteer.org. CADUP, Canadian Alliance for Development Initiatives and Projects. 907 to 950 Drake St. Vancouver, BC V6Z2B9. Canada. 604-628-7400. codep.org. Changing Worlds. 11 Doctors Lane, Caldon, Surrey, CR35AE. England. 44 1883 340 960. changingworlds.co.uk. Peace Brigades. 192 Spadina Avenue, Toronto, on M5T2C2. 416-504-5 4429. Fax, 416-504-4430. pbi@web.apc.org. Try to encourage peace in troubled countries. Sannan Village. C/Okadip. 907 to 950 Drake St. Vancouver, BC V6Z2B9. Canada. 604-628-7400. codep.org. Volunteer Canada. 430 Gilmore St. Ottawa, on K2POR8. 800-670-0401. Fax, 613-231-6725. volunteer.canada@simpiatico.ca. volunteer.ca. canadian-universities.net/volunteer/index.html has a very good list of organizations both by province and category. The only problem is that you have to click on every organization to get its website name. Their categories are as follows: addictions, adoption, adult learning, advocacy and human rights, AIDS, Alzheimer, animals, art, art centers, art councils, arts and culture, autism, camps, cancer, children and youth, community services, crime prevention, crisis support, cultural centers, dance, disabled, disorders, education and literacy, emergency and safety, employment and careers, environment, family services, family support, festival, film, First Nation and Aboriginal peoples, galleries, health, health and medicine, health centers, history, homeless and housing, hospice and palliative care, housing, hunger, immigrants and refugees, independence, international, justice and legal, leadership, LGBT, libraries, mental health, military, missions, museums and archives, music, politics, poverty, pregnancy, religion, rescue and adoption, restorative justice, scholarships, science and technology, search and rescue, seniors, sports and recreation, theater, victim services, volunteer centers, wildlife, women. Chapter 4. Canadian Nonprofits Guide 4. Circleax.org, Articles for the Business of Charities and Nonprofits, Canadian Nonprofit News website. Practical articles that charities can benefit from. There is news and articles about running a nonprofit. linkedin.com/company/circle-x. twitter.com/circleax. facebook.com/circleaxcanada. pinterest.ca/696599B8E7E353A31818DB8D091051. A list of nonprofit job websites at circleax.org/nonprofit-charity-job-boards. circleax.org/nonprofit-jobs. circleax.org/find-non-profit-jobs. idealist.org. bridgespan.org. foundationlist.org. jobs.diversity.social. diversity.social. diversity.social/professional associations. charityvillage.com. hercjobs.org. charityjob.co.uk. jobs.thirdsector.co.uk. probonoaustralia.com.au. ethicaljobs.com.au. circleax.org/topics/charity-jobs. circleax.org/topics/green-jobs. circleax.org/topics/nonprofit-jobs. A list of top philanthropy organizations from circleax.org/best-high-impact-philanthropy-sites. They don't list the websites. You have to click on these organizations listed below to get to a CircleAct page which gives info about that organization. CircleAx High Impact Philanthropy, Canada. Center for High Impact Philanthropy, United States Philanthropy. GiveWell Charity Review and Research, United States Philanthropy. Charity Clarity, United Kingdom Philanthropy. Imagine Canada, Canadian Philanthropy. Change Path, Australian Philanthropy. Animal Charity Evaluators, United States Philanthropy. A list of environmental charity websites at circleax.org/best-environmental-charities-USA. EdenProjects.org. GTNPF.org. RainforestTrust.org. OnetreePlanted.org. AcadiaCenter.org. GreenForestsWork.org. ARRI.osmre.gov. ARRI.osmre.gov/FRA/FRApproach.shtm. TreesAtlanta.org. ConservationFoundation.com. NCCoast.org. A list of climate change charity websites at circleax.org/best-environmental-charities-for-climate-change. davidsuzuki.org. conservationfund.org. earthjustice.org. environmentaldefense.ca. 350.org. cpause.org. A list of Canadian Native charities at circleax.org/best-indigenous-people-charities-non-profits. They don't list the websites. Click on the following names on their page and it leads you to a new page describing these charities. Water First. Raven Trust. Honoring Indigenous People. True North Aid. Canadian Roots Exchange. Indigenous Neighbours Program. Inuit Tapiriat Kanatami. Cochita. Inspire. The Native Women's Association of Canada. Not Just Tourists. Habitat for Humanity Canada. So on Fire Ministries. Indigenous Awareness Canada. I Love First Peoples. Chapter 5. Canadian Museum Guide. Museum Jobs/Curator Career/Archivist Career. Check out a more in-depth version of this article at bls.gov/oco/ocos065.htm. Museum work is generally archival and curator-administrative oriented. Archivists and curators search for, acquire, analyze, catalog, restore, exhibit, maintain and store items of lasting value. These may consist of historical documents, corporate records, art, coins, stamps, minerals, clothing, maps, live and preserved plants and animals, buildings, or historic sites. Archivists determine what portion of the vast amount of information produced by government agencies, corporations, educational institutions, and other organizations should be made part of a historical record or put on exhibit. They classify information so it may be located easily and determine whether it should be stored as original documents, on microfilm, or as computer records. Archives may be part of a library or museum or may be a separate unit. Most items in archives are documents, but photographs, blueprints, and other items also are stored. Archivists often specialize in an area of history or technology so they can properly determine what should become part of the archives. Archivists may also specialize by type of record, computerized information, photographs, or ancient documents. Curators manage collections in museums, zoos, aquariums, botanic gardens, and historic sites. They acquire items through purchases, gifts, field exploration, inter-museum loans or, in the case of plants and animals, breeding. They often restore objects such as works of art or historic items to their original condition. This may require substantial historical and archaeological research. Curators also plan and prepare attractive, interesting, and informative exhibits. Some curators plan and conduct museum education programs. Most museums, zoos, botanic gardens, and historic sites offer tours conducted by instructors, guides or docents, museum volunteers. Since many tours are composed of school groups, tours must be geared to the age of the students. Some museums conduct classes, workshops, or lectures for students or the general public which are conducted or arranged for by curators. Most curators specialize in fields such as zoology, art, or history. Those working in large institutions may be highly specialized. A large natural history museum would have specialists in birds, fishes, mammals, and dinosaurs. Furthermore, in large institutions, most curators specialize in functions. Some restore or maintain the collection while others perform administrative tasks such as registrars who are responsible for keeping track of and moving objects in the collection. In small institutions, with only one or a few curators, they are responsible for almost everything. Archival work requires meticulous attention to detail. Many archivists work alone, generally in offices with only one or two other persons. Curators also usually work in offices. However, working conditions vary depending upon the type and size of museum. Little physical activity is required of many curators, but those who restore and install exhibits may climb, stretch or lift, and those in zoos, botanical gardens, and other outdoor museums or historic sites walk a lot. Curators in large, heavily endowed museums may travel extensively to evaluate potential additions to the collection and to organize exhibitions. Those in museums with very limited budgets may travel only occasionally. About 1/4 of archivists and curators are employed in museums, botanical gardens, and zoos, and 1/5 are in public and private education, particularly in college and university libraries. About 4 in 10 work in federal, state and local government. Most federal archivists are employed in the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA.gov, others manage military archives in the Department of Defense. Most federal government curators work at the Smithsonian Institution, in the military museums of the Department of Defense, and in archaeological and other museums managed by the Department of Interior. All state governments have archival or historical records sections employing archivists. State and local governments have numerous historical museums, parks, and zoos employing curators. Some large corporations have archival or records centers, employing archivists to manage the historical records required by law or necessary to the firm's operations. Religious and fraternal organizations, professional associations, and research firms also employ a few archivists and curators. Employment as an archivist or curator generally requires graduate training and substantial practical or work experience. Many archivists and curators work in archives or museums while completing their formal education. Archivists usually earn undergraduate and graduate degrees in history or related fields, with courses in archival or library science. Most archivists have a master's degree and many have a doctorate or second master's degree in library science. More than 70 colleges and universities offer courses or practical training in archival science, about 30 offer master's degrees, and 10, doctorates. Continuing education is very important. Meetings, conferences, and workshops sponsored by the Society of American Archivists, the National Archives and Records Administration, and other archival associations enable archivists to keep up with developments in their field, such as the use of computers to store and access information. Archivists need good eyesight to analyze deteriorated or poor quality printed matter, handwritten manuscripts, or photographs and films. Archivists also must be able to organize large amounts of information and write clear instructions for its retrieval and use. Many archival units are very small, with limited promotion opportunities. Advancement generally is through transferring to a larger unit with supervisory positions. Where an archive is part of a library or a museum, archivists many become librarians, manuscripts, curators, or managers of these organizations. The minimum requirements for employment as a curator are a bachelor's degree in an appropriate discipline of the museum's specialty, art, history, or archaeology, and experience in museum work. In most museums, a master's degree in a related field is generally required, but employers prefer a doctorate. For some positions, an internship of full-time museum work supplemented by courses in museum practices and needed. Many students interested in museum work take courses or obtain a bachelor's or master's degree in museum studies, museology. About 60 colleges and universities offer undergraduate courses in museum studies, nearly 40 grant the bachelor's degree and over 90 grant the master's degree. However, many employers feel that, while museum studies are helpful, thorough knowledge of the museum's specialty is considered more important. Curatorial positions often require knowledge in a number of fields. For historic and artistic conservation, courses in chemistry, physics, and in painting and crafts are desirable. Since curators, particularly those in small museums, may have administrative and managerial responsibilities, course in business administration and public relations also are recommended. Curators must be flexible because of their wide variety of duties. They need an aesthetic sense to design and present exhibits, and in small museums manual dexterity is needed to erect exhibits or restore objects. Leadership ability is important for museum directors, while public relations skills are valuable in increasing museum attendance and fundraising. Continuing education is also very important for curators. They attend conferences, meetings, and workshops sponsored by the American Association of Museums, other museum associations, and by large museums such as the Smithsonian Institution. In large museums, curators may advance through several levels of responsibility, eventually to museum director. Curators in smaller museums often advance to larger ones. Individual research and publications are important for advancement. Competition for jobs is keen. Graduates with highly specialized training, such as master's degrees in both library science and history, with a concentration in archives or records management, may have the best opportunities for jobs as archivists. A job as a curator is attractive to many people and many have the necessary subject knowledge, yet there are only a few openings. Consequently, candidates may have to work part-time or as an intern or even as a volunteer assistant curator or research associate after completing their formal education, and substantial work experience in collection management, exhibit design, or restoration will be necessary for permanent status. Archivists can improve their job opportunities by taking courses in library or information science. Some employment opportunities will arise in related fields such as librarian, records manager, collection manager, and public historian and information scientist. Archivists and curators' interest in preservation and display are shared by anthropologists, arborists, archaeologists, artifacts conservators, botanists, ethnologists, folklorists, genealogists, historians, horticulturists, information specialists, librarians, paintings restorers, records managers, and zoologists. bls.gov/oco/ocos065.htm, archivists, curators, and museum technicians. Archivists.org. Archivists.org/employment/index.asp. Museumjobs.com, arts, museum jobs. aam-us.org/aviso/index.cfm, database of employment advertising from the American Association of Museums website. aam-us.org/index.htm, National Association of museum-employment.com/jobdu.html, Museum Employment Resource Center. Museums. aam-us.org, American Association of Museums. Globalmuseum.org, a zine dedicated to museums, employment listings. h-net.org/museum, museum mailing list. h-net.org/museum/archive.html, archived messages. museum-employment.com. museumjobs.com. aic.stanford.edu, American Institute for Conservation of Historic and Artistic Works. aic.stanford.edu, American Institute for Conservation of Historic and Artistic Works. algonquincollege.com/museum/jobras. archive.org. archives.org. archivists.org. archivists.org/prof-education/arprof.asp, so you want to be an archivist, an overview of the archival profession. arlasena.org, Art Libraries Society of North America. bls.gov/oco/ocos065.htm, archivists, curators, and museum technicians. britishmuseum.org/jobs. calmuseums.org/jobs/index.html, California Association of Museums. career.berkeley.edu/article/011026a.stm, research and collections management. careerbuilder.com/jobs/keyword/archivist. careerplanner.com/dot-job-descriptions/archivist.cfm. careerplanner.com/job-descriptions/archivists.cfm. careervoyages.gov. certifiedarchivists.org. chronicle.com/jobs/200010/101303c.htm, careers for PhDs in museums. collegegrad.com/careers/proft50.shtml, archivists, curators, and museum technicians. cthrc.ca, Tourism Canada. edinformatics.com/careers/curators.htm. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/archivist. fabjob.com. getarchivistjobs.net. hclist.de/museum/index1.html. ici-exhibitons.org, Independent Curators Inc. icom.org/vlmp/contacts.html, museum contacts, set of links to international museums, galleries, institutions, associations, and online discussion groups. idealist.org. indianapolis-childrens-museum.topjobsresources.net. interpecan.ca, historic interpreter. iseek.org/sv/13020.jsp?ID=100385, career, museum technicians and conservators. jobs.com.au/librarian-jobs/archivist-jobs. listjobs.com/jobs. museum-employment.com. museum-employment.com. museumjobs.com. museumjobs.com. museum-management.com 43things/views/113752. museums.ca. museumstudies.si.edu. museumwork.com. nagaara.org, National Association of Government Archives and Records. nhm.org/expeditions/activities/nhmactivities.pdf, museum scientists. nmnh.si.edu, Museum of Natural History. oswego.edu/student/career/careersin/museum.html. practicalarchivist.blogspot.com. prospects.ac.uk. redref.com, elsevier.com, 800-521-8110, Book Museums of the World, International Directory of the Arts. san-antonio-childrens-museum.topjobsresources.net. sfsu.edu/museums/museums.html, Bay Area Museum Connection. Developed by the Museum Studies program at San Francisco State University. si.edu/ohr/museum.htm, museum careers. The Smithsonian Institution provides general information for a variety of careers that are unique to the museum world. sihr.si.edu/museum.htm. simplyhired.com. stats.bls.gov/oco/ocos065.htm, archivists, curators, and museum technicians profile from the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Twitter.com/GetaRchivistJobs. USAJob.gov, Government Jobs at Museums. usd.edu/library/pdf/archivist_job_description_0102009.pdf. visabureau.com/australia/jobs-archivist-job-australia.aspx. Some lists of museums are at aam-us.org, American Association of Museums. comlab.ox.ac.uk/archive/other/museums.html. museumserver.nl/e_index.html. serious.com/tilde-robinson/museprof.html. vol.it/ukn/arte. wwar.com/museums.html, list of museums. American Association of Museums. 1575, IST Northwest. Number 400. Washington, D.C. 20005. 202-289-9122. aam-us.org. American Association of Botanical Gardens and Arboreta. 786 Church Road, Wayne, Pennsylvania 19087. 610-688-1120. obga.org. For information about curatorial careers in botanical gardens. American Association of Museums. 1225 I Street, NW. Number 200. Washington, D.C. 20005. 202-289-1818. aam-us.org. Association of Canadian Archivists. POG 2596, Station D. Ottawa, on K1P5W6. Archivists.ca. Society of American Archivists. 527 South Wells Street, 5th floor. Chicago, Illinois 60607. Archivists.org. Academy of Certified Archivists. 90 State Street, number 1009. Albany, New York 12207. CertifiedArchivists.org. Association of Records Managers and Administrators. 4200 Somerset Drive. Number 215. Prairie Village, Kansas 66208. 913-341-3808. 913-752-4030, Jobline. National Association for Interpretation. POG 1892. FT. Collins, Colorado 80522. 970-484-8283. Jobs in Interpretation, Weekly. Interpreters are people with cultural knowledge who give tours and talk to people. R.R. Boker, CO. 121 Shanlin Road, New Providence, New Jersey 07974-1541. 888 Boker 2. 908-464-6800. Fax, 908-464-3553. info@boker.com. boker.com. redref.com. The official museum directory. Society of American Archivists. 527 South Wells St. 5th FL. Chicago, Illinois 60607-1452. 312-922-0140. Fax, 312-347-1452. Archivists.org. Archival Outlook, SAA Employment Bulletin, published every 2 months. Also a directory of members. Canadian Museums/Canada Museums. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/list_of_museums_in_Canada. chin.gc.ca, Canadian Heritage. pch.gc.ca, Parks and Heritage. Museums.ca, Canadian Museums Association. Museumsofcanada.com, a shopping site, nothing about museums. Virtualmuseum.ca. Canadian Conservation Institute, CCI. cci-icc.gc.ca. Canadian Heritage Information Network, CHIN. chin.gc.ca. Canadian Museums Association, CMA. Museums.ca. Canada Council for the Arts. 350 Albert Street. Pub 1047. Ottawa, on K1P5V8. Canada. CanadaCouncil.ca. Canadian Museums Association. 280 Metcalfe Street No. 400. Ottawa, on K2P1R7. Canada. Museums.ca. Specific Canadian museum websites. Civilization.ca. Agriculture.technomuses.ca, Canada Agriculture Museum. Aviation.technomuses.ca, Canada Aviation and Space Museum. Sciencetech.technomuses.ca, Canada Science and Technology Museum. cci-icc.gc.ca/index-eng.aspx, Canadian Conservation Institute. humanrightsmuseum.ca/home, Canadian Museum for Human Rights. cmcp.gallery.ca/English, Canadian Museum of Contemporary Photography. civilization.ca/home, Canadian Museum of History. PIER21.ca/home, Canadian Museum of Immigration at Pier 21. nature.ca/nature_e.cfm, Canadian Museum of Nature. warmuseum.ca/cwm/index_e.aspx, Canadian War Museum. collectionscanada.gc.ca/index-e.html, Library and Archives Canada/eng/1373394150032, Museum Associations in Canada. national.gallery.ca/English, National Gallery of Canada. mint.ca/store/mint/about-the-mint/visit-the-mint-1200026 number sign.u8_bmifdv8f, Royal Canadian Mint. museevirtual.museum.ca/index-eng.jsp, Virtual Museum of Canada. agns.ednet.ns.ca. agns.rdnet.ns.ca, Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. ago.net, Art Gallery of Ontario. glenbow.org, Glenbow Museum, Western Canadian History. artsource.shnova.com. aviation.nmsdc.ca, 613-993-2010, Aviation Museum, Ottawa. baseballhof.ca. calgaryscience.ca, 403-221-3700. canadianflight.org. canoe.ca/slamwrestling/hellofame.html. chilliwack.museum.bc.ca. civilization.ca, 819-776-7000, Hull, QC, across from Ottawa. dartmouthheritagemuseum.ns.ca. discoverycentre.ns.ca. edmontoncience.com, 780-451-3344. ednet.nature.ca, 902-424-7353, Museum of Natural History, Halifax. ednet.ns.ca/educ/museum. glenbow.org, 403-268-4100, Calgary. goldfever.on.ca. gold-rush.org, Dawson. gov.nb.ca/nbmuseum, 506-658-1842, St. John. hoff.com, 416-360-7765, Hockey Hall of Fame, Toronto. historymuseum.ca. machinemuseum.net, motorbikes, and more, Wetaskiwin, epub. manitobamuseum.mb.ca, 204-956-2830, Winnipeg. mbam.qc.ca. mccord-museum.qc.ca. mcmichael.com, McMichael Canadian Art Collection.mbzl.qc.ca, Basse Saint Laurent Museum, Contemporary Art and Ethnology. mcq.org, Quebec City Museum of Civilization. mdq.org, Museum of Quebec, Parc des Champs d'Italie National.gallery.ca, National Gallery of Canada, Ottawa. mmfa.qc.ca/en/index, 800-899 Muse, Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. museum.gov.ns.ca. museumfortextiles.on.ca. nature.ca. nature.museum.gov.ns.ca. nfmuseum.com. nmsdc.com, 613-991-3044, National Museum of Science and Technology, Ottawa. ontariorom.on.ca, Royal Ontario Museum, Toronto, Ontario. osc.on.ca, 416-429-4100, Ontario Science Centre, Toronto. ottawamuseums.com. PIER21.ca, Halifax. rbcm.gov.bc.ca, 250-387-3701, Royal British Columbia Museum, Victoria. rom.on.ca, 416-586-8000, Royal Ontario Museum, Toronto. rossfarm.museum.gov.ns.ca. royalbcmuseum.bc.ca. sciencecentre.sk.ca. sciencenorth.on.ca, 705-522-3700, Sudbury. science-tech.nmsdc.ca. textilemuseum.ca. tyrellmuseum.com, 403-823-7707, Dinosaurs, Drumheller, epub. vanartgallery.bc.ca. vanmuseum.bc.ca, 604-736-4431, Vancouver Museum. wag.mb.ca, Winnipeg Art Gallery, Winnipeg, manitoba.warmuseum.ca, 613-776-8600, Ottawa. A list of Canada museums, no websites. epub, Calgary, Glenbow Museum, 403-268-4100. epub, Grande Prairie, The Art Gallery of Grande Prairie, 780-532-8111. epub, Lethbridge, Southern Alberta Art Gallery, 1-403-327-8770. BC, Courtenay, Comox Valley Art Gallery, 250-338-6211. BC, Kamloops, Kamloops Art Gallery, 250-377-2400. BC, Kelowna, Kelowna Art Gallery, 250-762-2226. BC, Prince George, Two Rivers Gallery, 250-614-7800. BC, Victoria, Art Gallery of Greater Victoria, 250-384-4171. BC, Victoria, Royal BC Museum, 250-356-7226. MB, Winnipeg, Winnipeg Art Gallery, 204-786-6641. NS, Halifax, Art Gallery of Nova Scotia, 902-424-5280. On, Aurora, Aurora Cultural Centre, 905-713-1818. On, Grimsby, Grimsby Public Art Gallery, 905-945-3246. On, Hamilton, Art Gallery of Hamilton, 905-527-6610. On, Kleinbug, McMichael Canadian Art Collection, 905-893-1121. On, Mississauga, Art Gallery of Mississauga, 905-896-5088. On, Sarnia, Judith and Norman Alex Art Gallery, 519-336-8127. On, Sudbury, Art Gallery of Sudbury/Gallery d'Art de Sudbury, 705-675-4871. On, Toronto, The Batachou Museum, 416-979-7799. On, Toronto, Craft Ontario, 416-925-4222. On, Toronto, Museum of Contemporary Canadian Art, 416-395-0067. On, Toronto, Museum of Inuit Art, 416-640-1571. On, Toronto, The Power Plant Contemporary Art Gallery, 416-973-4949. On, Toronto, YYZ Artists Outlet, 416-598-4546. On, Waterloo, Canadian Clay and Glass Gallery, 519-746-1882. QC, Montreal, Canadian Centre for Architecture, 514-939-7000. QC, Montreal, The McCord Museum of Canadian History, 514-398-7100. SK, Regina, Mackenzie Art Gallery, 306-584-4250. Nova Scotia Museums. Museum.gov.ns.ca, Nova Scotia Museum, 800-632-1114. Museum.gov.ns.ca/events. Nova Scotia Heritage.ca. acadianvillage.museum.gov.ns.ca. cardingmill.museum.gov.ns.ca, 902-543-8233. cosset.museum.gov.ns.ca. dorishop.museum.gov.ns.ca. firefighters.museum.gov.ns.ca. fisheries.museum.gov.ns.ca, 866-579-4909. fishermanslife.museum.gov.ns.ca, 889-2053, Jedor area. fundigeo.museum.gov.ns.ca. gristmill.museum.gov.ns.ca. halliburton.museum.gov.ns.ca. highlandvillage.museum.gov.ns.ca. industry.museum.gov.ns.ca. lawrence.museum.gov.ns.ca. maritime.museum.gov.ns.ca. maritime mccukcook.museum.gov.ns.ca. Museum of the Atlantic. meetingplace.museum.gov.ns.ca. museum.gov.ns.ca/arch/blk data, Black Settlement in Nova Scotia. museum.gov.ns.ca/Black Loyalists. museum.gov.ns.ca/FEMA, Fisheries Museum of the Atlantic. museum.gov.ns.ca/MMA/Titanic/Titanic. museum.gov.ns.ca/MNH, Museum of Natural History. museum.gov.ns.ca/nature/ns birds/b_sites.html, bird watching. museum.gov.ns.ca/mnh/nature/winbird/tips. mvta.net, 384-2006, Moose River Gold Mines Museum, near Elms Vale. nature.museum.gov.ns.ca, 424-3563, Museum of Natural History. northhills.museum.gov.ns.ca. perkins.museum.gov.ns.ca, 902-354-4058. prescott.museum.gov.ns.ca. rossfarm.museum.gov.ns.ca. rostomson.museum.gov.ns.ca shand.museum.gov.ns.ca sherbrooke.village.museum.gov.ns.ca steammill.museum.gov.ns.ca uniac.museum.gov.ns.ca woolenmill.museum.gov.ns.ca Chapter 6 Canadian Childcare Guide Canadian Childcare / Canadian Daycare Caregivers.ca 416-367 Care, Canada AECEO.ca Early Childhood Educators Daycareproviders.ca Child and Family Canada CFC-EFC.ca Publications and links to Canadian childcare organizations CalgaryNanny.ca Calgary Nanny daycarecentres.com/daycare/ca/canada/childcare.html cafcc.on.ca Coordinated Access for Child Care, the official site for childcare and daycare services in Hamilton, on pcpctoronto.org, Toronto and District Cooperative Preschool Corporation wcfcca.ca 800-686-6685 Western Canada Family Childcare Association of BC abcnannies.org, BC AbsoluteCaRenanny.com 877-925-8474 Caregiversandmore.ca 902-425-7727 Halifax child.gov.ab.ca Free online booklet Protocols for Handling Child Abuse and Neglect in Childcare internationalnannies.com Vancouver nannies4you.com Halifax nannyfindersbc.com newsolutionscanada.com Toronto opti-mum.com Vancouver scotia-personnel-ltd.com Halifax, Canada swccfc.gc.ca/publish/research/ccare-e, Canadian Association for Young Children 612 West 23rd St. N. Vancouver, BC V7M2C3 604-984-0241 kc.ca Canadian Association of Family Resource Programs 707-331 Cooper St. Ottawa, on K2P0G5 613-237-7667 frp.ca Canadian Child Care Federation 201-383 Parkdale Ave, Ottawa, on K1Y4R4 800-858-1412 613-729-5289 Fax 613-729-3159 cccf-fcsge.ca Canadian Council of Social Development/CCSD 441 McLaren 4th floor Ottawa, Ontario K2P2H3 613-236-8977 The Canadian Daycare Advocacy Association Childcare Advocacy Association F Canada 323 Chapel Street Ottawa, Ontario Kin 7Z2 613-594-3196 Fax 613-594-9375 Childcare Programs Employability and Social Partnerships Human Resources Development Canada 140 Promenade du Portage Phase 4, 5th FL Hull, QCK1AOJ9 819-997-1452 hrdc.gc.ca collections.ic.gc.ca/child/index.html Childcare Resource and Research Unit/CRRU Center for Urban and Community Studies, University of Toronto. 455 Spadina Avenue, number 305. Toronto, Ontario M5S 208. 416-978-6895. childcarecanada.org. Family Service Canada. 220 Laurier Avenue West, number 600. Ottawa, Ontario KIP 5Z9. 613-722-8610. International Nannies and Home Care. 800-820-8308. Nannies of Canada. 902-454-2544. Unit for Child Care Research. School of Child and Youth Care. University of Victoria. Victoria, BC V8W2Y2. 250-721-7979. Vanier Institute of the Family. 94 Centre Point Drive, Nepean, Ontario. K2G6 by 613-228-8500. World Organization for Early Childhood Education Canada. Faculty of Education. Laval University. Quebec City, Quebec G1K7P4. 418-656-7891. Canadian Nanny websites. canadiannanny.ca. greataupare.com/au-pair-nanny-jobs/canada.hdm. nanny-agency.com. nannies4hire.com. nannies4hire.com/tips/1057-top-canada-locations-for-nanny-jobs.htm. diamondpersonnel.com/caregiver_jobs.php. nannyjobs.ca. nannyflower.ca. selectcaregiver.com. nannyperfect.com. nannyservices.ca. premierhomecareservices.com. Provincial Daycare Offices. childcare.net/licensing.shtml. Canadian Child Care Federation. 30 Rosemont Avenue, number 100. Ottawa, on Key 1P4. cfc-efc.ca/cccf. Alberta. Family and Social Services. Daycare Services. 7th FL. 9942 108th ST. Edmonton, UBT 5K2J5. 780-427-0444. gov.ab.ca. Family and Social Services. Daycare Services. 9th FL. 1520 4th ST Southwest. Calgary, UBT 2R1H5. 780-297-6100. gov.ab.ca. British Columbia. British Columbia. Child Care Branch. Ministry of Social Services. 3rd FL. 614 Humboldt ST. Victoria, BC V8V1X4. 250-387-6213. 800-663-7867. 604-660-2421, Vancouver. gov.bc.ca. Manitoba. Child Daycare. Number 102. 114 Gary St. Winnipeg, MBR3C1G1. 800-282-8069. 204-945-2197. 204-945-2668. gov.mb.ca. New Brunswick. Office for Child Care Services. Department of Health and Community SVCs. Daycare Assistance Program. POB 5100. Fredericton, NBE3B5G4. 506-453-2460. 506-453-2950. gov.nb.ca. Newfoundland. Daycare Subsidy Program. Department of Health and Community SVCs. epub 8700. St. John's, NFA 1B4J6. 709-570-7902. gov.nl.ca. Daycare and Homemaker Services. epub 87000. St. John's, NFA 1B4J6. 709-729-3590. gov.nl.ca. Nova Scotia. NS Daycare Programs. Department of Community SVCs. epub 696. Halifax, NSB 3J2T7. 902-424-3204. gov.ns.ca. Ontario. Childcare Branch. Ministry of Community and Social Services. 80 Grosvenor St. 4th FL. Toronto, on M7A1E9. 416-327-4865. gov.on.ca. Contact your municipal government daycare or family office if they have one. Prince Edward Island. Daycare Subsidy Program. Child and Family SVCs. 161 St. Peter's RD. epub 2000. Charlottetown, PECIA 7 and 8. 902-368-6440. 902-368-6518. gov.pe.ca. Early Childhood Services. Department of Health and Social Services. epub 2000. Charlottetown PEC 1A 7 and 8. 902-368-4957. gov.pe.ca. Quebec. Ministère de la Famille et de l'Enfance. Edifice André Laurendau. 1050 des Parlementaires. 70 Etage. Quebec City, QCG1R5Z8. 800-363-0310. 514-873-2323. gov.qc.ca. Saskatchewan. Childcare Program. 1920 Broad St. 11th FL. Regina, SKS4P3V6. 800-667-7155. 306-787-4114. gov.sk.ca. Northwest Territories. Childcare Program. Department of Social Services. NWT Government. 500-4920 52nd St. Yellowknife, NTX1A2L9. 867-873-6295, Career Center. 867-920-8920, Childcare. gov.nt.ca. Yukon. Childcare Services. Department of Health and Community SVCs. Yukon Government. epub 2703. Whitehorse, YKY1A2C6. 867-667-3492. gov.yu.ca.